Hello and welcome to Bunnyhop. My name's George Weedman, and do you remember how back in the day we got multiplayer demos that you could just play forever without having to pay for anything? Well, so does EA. Our loss is their gain, so now we have exclusive betas that last for just 4 days. On day 2 of the 4-day beta, I actually got my email notice that I was eligible for Battlefield 4. They're opening the red carpet for loyal customers of the premium edition of Battlefield 3, so I guess the $15 purchase I made 6 months ago finally paid off. Except it actually didn't, because now I'm being pressured to buy a whole new Battlefield game, and surprisingly enough, it's kind of fun. I mean, just look at how much fun this options screen is. Man, you got your FOV slider, you got your interface slider, you got a super sampling slider, you got your motion blur slider, and you know, just one colorblind mode isn't generous enough for this game. They give you 3. So anyways, Battlefield 3.5 is something that feels faster and more arcadey than the previous Battlefield, but not in a way that really sacrifices the technicalities of the game. It's hard to describe, but I swear player models are somehow a bit bigger in this one, or maybe your iron sights just zoom in a bit further. Everyone's running speed has been decreased, and movements and animations have a bit more frames to them, so you end up having gunplay that's more unforgiving on the shooter, but more punishing on the shootee. You can run and gun a bit easier now, but you gotta be about as careful as usual. In that respect, it actually feels a lot more like Bad Company 2, but without all the silly netcode issues that bog down its gunplay. They've also rethought how med packs and ammo refills work. You now throw out little grabbable packs that people run around and carry around with them to heal over time on a per individual basis, instead of throwing down static packs that heal over time around a fixed radius. The older method encourages players to set up refill stations around cover and play defensively, but the newer method, like the slight tweaks to the movements and the animations, encourage you to run and gun rather than stop and pop. And so does the map design. They picked a really nice map for showing off this game. It's the kind of map that represents that streak of ambition that you occasionally get out of a Battlefield level. It's huge, it's wide open, it's organically symmetrical with a big set-piece gimmick in the middle. Check this out, the critical middle capture point isn't on the ground, it's actually the rooftop of a huge skyscraper, and you have to either ride the elevators or take a helicopter up there and shoot your way through a fast mix of indoor and outdoor space. And there's a lot of strategic incentive to be up there. They actually drop weapons for you outside of your loadout in this game, and up on that skyscraper there's a 50 cal sniper and an anti-aircraft launcher that you can use in addition to your current loadout. Plus, recon and support roles have a lot of advantages to glean from any rooftop in this game, let alone the tallest one, which is also a capture point. But down on the ground are 4 supporting pillars which, when C4'd, topple the whole skyscraper and bring the capture point down to the ground along with the strategic value of the greater weapons and visibility that you get on top. There are elevators and rooftops on a lot of these buildings, and each one can turn the building into an impenetrable fortress if you have a few good recon or support players up top, since now support has an overpowered night vision grenade launcher. But to compensate, each side gets a few helicopters, and people camping on roofs are going to be an easy target for those guys. So the capture points are down on the ground, but 2 classes can score a lot of points up in the air, but their influence can be easily countered by vehicles, and that's the kind of rock, paper, scissors balance that makes any game work. And it shows that there was a lot of thought put into how this place was laid out and how the classes are supposed to work with each other. And that's also exactly how a Battlefield game is supposed to play. When you're on a team of competent players who know how to fly, you can have a lot of fun in this map, but being a standout player on the losing side is about as much of a futile grind as it was in the previous games. So I'd say Battlefield 4 looks about as promising as one could expect, but it is a beta, so there are a few big problems that may or may not persist after launch. I'm willing to bet that the one that's hardest to change is the aesthetics of the dust that comes off the collapsing tower. I really don't get what they were going for here, it just looks like white paint. Or just unfinished. I'm serious, once that tower falls, it actually looks like a textureless, prefab version of the map. Oh, and the elevators too. As cool as they are for gameplay purposes, they really aren't fooling anyone here. I remember elevators being a really hard thing to implement back in like the Quake 3 days, but apparently today you're still better off making teleporters that just look like elevators. And they aren't fooling anyone with the underwater scenery either, 'cause that stuff just doesn't exist. Commander mode is locked out of the beta, so I can't speak on that, even though I was really looking forward to it. I was also looking forward to using the battle screen as a little portable minimap on my tablet, but it just shows up blank for some reason. I can do it with my laptop, but seriously? And right now, the game isn't really well optimized either. Granted, it's better than it could be, but I was having a serious problem with frame skipping before I went through the process of updating drivers and upping the CPU clock for a couple ticks. Driving controls are really rigid for some reason. The vehicles just don't want to turn smooth. But that's just one really subtle change that doesn't really jive with the other changes. Compared to number 3, Battlefield 4 has redesigned a few core features to respectably make the game faster and even more nerve-wracking than the last. The slower player movement is counterbalanced by a greater need to get to the middle of the map faster, and it also means that you're easier to shoot. So there's very little downtime. You always have to be somewhere important at every moment of the match, and you're going to feel very vulnerable on your trip there. Giving players an incentive to rush to environmental vantage points is the theme of the map here, and all the little changes they've made to the core game are meant to facilitate that. So for the past 2 days that I've been playing it, it works. It's pretty fun. At least Conquest is. There's really no reason to be playing Domination. But the one real reason to not look forward to this is EA's inflated pricing scheme that overvalues this kind of experience and gives it a price point that doesn't respect how similar it is to the one from 2 years ago. But I don't know, after the complete Game of the Year edition inevitably comes out at a fraction of the cost, I could easily see myself picking this one up. We just gotta see if it retains this momentum after launch.